very deep emotional reaction walking back in the building so soon after. But now today, I probably would have just left her outside because I have the tools to some degree to be able to, I would just go to my counselor afterwards. But yeah,
You've mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I will say that the invitation to go back was a really helpful one, because I think not everyone receives that type of, that outreach and the time, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm thankful they did that.
Well, and actually that was what I was going to ask you, because I know that when you and I have talked, aside from this, that you've mentioned that the one person in your room that wasn't shot, has received some different resources or lesser resources because of that. Was he invited to come do this walkthrough with you guys?
I doubt it. I doubt it. I can't, I would say it was 85% confidence. Again, I don't know fully, but no. And I don't know how many, I think another interesting question is, I don't know how many of the survivors took them up on that, because we did it separately. I did mine separately at least. Yeah. I did reconnect on that trip with, Colin, the one who drove me to class that morning, because he was there for something else. But I highly doubt it. Clay walked out of the building, kept going. I know that he went to the police station the day after, and they asked him to identify the shooter, because they had so few eyewitness accounts. They showed him a picture of the guy, which is probably not the best thing to do to someone who just survived that. I can double check, but I don't think so. I think he definitely wasn't included in a lot of the outreach.
Gotcha. So kind of shifting gears a little bit here, thinking about sort of from that 30-day period up until the first year anniversary, can you tell me a little bit about how your recovery progressed?
To the 1 year anniversary? Well, I guess through July, so through spring of that year was kind of the physical recovery that I was able to be able to walk, and I could run. There are definitely moments that I remember in terms of I could eat more things, or I could wear high heels. That were kind of milestones in my head. And then the next really important time was when I went back to school, because I was back in my environment, and I kind of jumped in with both feet ahead, thinking I was going to be the exact same type of student that I was prior to the shooting. I was excited to see my friends. I was excited to go back to parties, and I was really into Greek life at that point in college. And the first party I went to it was evening, it was dark, I was pretty frightened and, heightened and vigilant and scared because I was in a small space and cramped. So the, post-traumatic triggers started to appear, but I wasn't aware of why they were happening, and that caused me more anxiety looking back. So it was in December of that year, I had a little breakdown. I don't remember if anything triggered it, or if it was just, a collection of grief. And I hadn't really talked to anyone about the shooting too much. I only dealt with it on any big level. And the next day I went to counseling, and the way I thought of it was, I assumed that after going through what we had, I was going to have some type of issues and some type of, longer term impact. I think part of that is just me being Russian. I'm of course we're going to be fucked up after that. How do you not? And I wanted to address it to some degree a little bit earlier than later. So that first counseling appointment was not a good experience. This is the one where he doesn't know. I have to tell him that I was inside the building, and just by his reaction, I'm okay, if you can't handle this, I'm in the wrong place. and again, it's not his fault. He was clearly shocked, because everyone in the community was traumatized to some degree. But there's also, it wasn't set up again, had they known, it wasn't set up in a really smart way. It was a small room, and there was construction going on in the building. There was hammering above me, so I was scared about that. And then I called Megan at the Office of Recovery and Support, and credit to her, she didn't say call this, other counseling center and ask for somebody or explain who you were. She really said call Dr. Jane Kendall Benson and tell her whatever that I sent you. And so I'm assuming that she had done some back work on her end. So Jane, I mean, she didn't talk to her couple, she didn't know my whole story, but I didn't have to. I felt there was some level of certainty if she had some prior, information about me, and thankfully we matched on a personal level. And the first year was really, was just the early foundational work of learning to trust her, knowing that she could understand and could connect respectfully with my experience without giving me too much, labels, or everyone else was kind of trying to have these smooth, calming tones of it's going to be okay, and here's some almost too sympathetic. Mm-hmm. She wasn't, she didn't make me feel like a victim in that space. She made me feel normal. She would say things like, you're having normal reactions to an abnormal situation. Here's how we're going to cope with that. And so the fact that I was a shooting survivor it was just a descriptor. It was more of, you've gone through something really tragic, that's what we're going to deal with. And she validated it. And I remember drawing diagrams so that I could understand the fragility of what happened. And I remember a really poignant meeting session where all that I got to was this moment of grief of realizing that we were so young and so fragile, and she kind of looked at me and was just like, yep. and that was it. That was the session. And it was just trying to acknowledge that, we almost died. And we couldn't do anything about it in that scope. And so, it's interesting looking back. She's fantastic, and I still see her occasionally. Because she treated, I felt she treated me and the experience with a level of respect, and again, she was empathetic, but I got that from her tone and her language and her presence versus, she never slid me like a stress manual. She never gave me some stupid meditation CD. I mean, later on, some people would give those, and they were helpful, but at that moment, at that first year, I needed someone to really help me come to terms with the event, because I was still in a space of not wanting to accept this is going to in some way change me for a longer term, that I had the right to be upset in a longer term space. So I don't know if that made sense. Sorry.
No, it totally does. Aside from this counselor, did you seek out any other resources during this sort of 1 year period?
Yes, I think the Office of Recovery and Support, so Megan Armbruster was probably the main resource. Let me think about specific examples. Logistical. I think I had to have a deadline change for a class, and they were nice about that. It was just making the connection. It gave us a lot of resources. So one that they service they offered was that they offered to tell our professors. Now they only did this a year after, the next, not the immediate semester, but the semester afterwards. They offered to kind of give our professors a heads up that we were students that were shot, which is really nice, because sometimes the effort of having to self-disclose for someone that why would they know can be a really intimidating and awkward experience. So that was nice to kind of relieve that. They would start to call us. So how obviously mass notification and emails, that became a much bigger. They were much more prone to do that after the shooting. So if there was a manslaughter with a gun on campus, so before the email went out, we would get a phone call from Megan, just giving us a heads up saying, hey, you're about to get this, just to help lessen our anxiety in response to it, which is really nice. That was I appreciated that, because sometimes you're just caught off guard by things. Other resources. Counseling, my friends were really great, and again, not that we had therapy sessions together, but I felt supported, I guess, in that way. And then we would start to get, I don't remember exactly when they started, but the Office of Recovery and Support would get us together for dinners with other survivors, so that there was that opportunity to meet them. But on that note, we never, I felt like we could have used it more so for therapeutic purposes versus just kind of social. All of us never really got the chance to talk about who we were and what happened to us. I actually organized a group counseling session for my classroom, within, I don't remember, a year and a half.